And there are a lot of churches that have had slogans or sayings or all those kind of things. Those are not really vision statements. I worked with a church out west, and their vision statement was a place for hurting people. It sounded really spiritual. Yeah. And they got what they asked for.
more than they wanted.
The problem was the church never did grow because when they got hurting people who got spiritually whole, they didn't want to stay in a church full of hurting people, so they went on to another church.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I get it.
Because the church didn't identify themselves correctly.
It's true.
Instead of being a church for hurting people, they should have been a church of health and healing.
Yes, sir.
See? So how you identify yourself does matter. So slogans are not vision statements. Sayings are not vision statements. Vision statements are a few words that we can hang everything that we do on. First of all, in your notes, we talk about must be vertical to God. Must speak to something of relationship to the Lord, loving God. It must be horizontal to the church, which has to do with relationship and serving and all of those aspects of the life of a believer. And then thirdly, horizontal to the lost. That we're focused on that somewhere in that vision statement, I need to see evangelism. And a lot of churches, have vision statements, and they don't encompass what we believe are important, and that's those fivefold ingredients of the New Testament church. And so we have some samples of those up here for you. Here's one: love God, love people, share hope. When I look at that vision statement, I can see all five of the biblical functions: love God, worship, and discipleship. Love people, serving, and fellowship. Share hope, evangelism. So I can see all five of those biblical functions in that vision statement. I work with large churches as well that walk through this journey. Right now I'm working with 3 churches that are fairly large churches, and we're doing a one-on-one kind of thing with them. And once they determine their vision statement, then we hang the entire vision process on that vision statement. And so that it's very, very personal to that local church. And right now I'm with 3 large churches that are finishing up a process with me that they'll be casting their vision in January, February coming up. And so we hang everything based on that. One of the things that's important, paragraphs cannot be vision statements. There was a guy who Simmons got hired many, many years ago to help them with transformation with the Aj2 headquarters. He was a Jewish guy, and he did corporate mergers and was a genius. A Jewish guy, he was a genius at this. And so I just kind of followed him everywhere he went. I wanted to learn from this guy. The transformation didn't happen because we couldn't get some folks to behave in new ways. And that, we won't go down that road here.
Amen.
But one thing he taught me was the power of simplicity.
They found the button.
Less is more. In fact, the more words it takes you to say something, the less you understand it. I remember him saying to me one day, he's written numerous books on the emerging cultures and so forth. And he said, Ron, this is my new book. It's 300 pages. When I really understand it, it'll be 150. Let me talk to the pastors here for a moment.
That's good. That's good. Preach it, brother. Talk to me.
How many of us have had those moments when we knew we weren't striking fire with that sermon, And we kept circling that mountain and circling that airport, hoping something would strike fire. And longevity did not equal effectiveness.
Amen. That's true.
Pack it up.
It's even more true with these kind of things. So one of the things we have to work on, churches want to do all these major paragraphs and stuff like that. You've got to be able to synthesize who you are in simplicity like this to be effective. And so we're urging churches to look at that and begin to frame up everything based on that, so that all 5 biblical functions can be seen. Honor God, live the faith, reach the world. Love God, live the life, share Christ. Some of God Church in my area in near Charlotte, North Carolina, one of our largest churches in that district, Concord First Assembly, they on the massive brick wall on the highway, they have just put their vision statement for the whole world to see. And more churches are understanding even a vision statement is important for an unbelieving world to see. Because one of the problems we have in the church is that the only time many churches show up in the community is when they're against something. Dean Merrill wrote a book 25 years ago that changed my life. And what changed my life was the title of the book. I don't know how much of it I read, but the title messed me up. Here was the title: Sinners in the Hands of an Angry Church. And so, in the community, sometimes the only time they hear from us is when we're against something. And most of them don't know what we're for. And so many churches now are understanding the value of a vision statement that they can even make known to the community. So that a vision statement like that, love God, love people, share hope, I mean, that's a very positive thing for an unchurched person to see about your church. And becomes a message about what we're for. And so that's why the vision statement becomes important. So when the day is done, where this vision statement when they leave retreat 1, their homework assignment includes 2 things: to finish the dream statements, and number 2, come back to retreat 2 with the overarching vision statement for your church. And we'll take a few minutes in the beginning of retreat 2 to have them share their vision statement. So that we understand they're tracking with us, because if we don't get that done, then we really can't move to retreat 2 issues. And so every retreat builds on the next retreat, so that we need that accomplished coming out of retreat 1. And so when they come back to retreat 2, they got 3 months to get it all done and right. And so they come back and report out on their vision statement as a church. So that's basically the kind of thing we work with them on. Questions you have for me about the vision statement? Anybody? About what we're talking about with this? Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if we're going to talk about this later on in the retreat, but is there a way, are metrics included in the vision statements, or is that not a part of this?
Well, metrics are included in that when the strategic plan for ministry is put together, there are metrics that are connected to that, which is under the vision statement. So yeah, there are specifics that would be put in their strategic plan for ministry that say how we're doing on that, and what and we'll unpack that a little bit more when we get to retreat 3. But a vision plan can't all be accomplished in 1 year. It's a process of rolling that out, because some of the things in a vision plan, you're 6 months, 8 months, a year into it before you can even launch some of the things that are in your vision plan. And it's important for churches to understand it's a process of rollout, because quite frankly, some of the things in our vision plan, we got to have a lot more workers to do it. So we got to cast the vision, get them to commit to the vision, and get involved in ministry before we can actually do some of the things that are in the vision plan. So it's over a process of time. Alvin, come right on. Before we talk, he wants to say something.
No. I've had people ask me, isn't this too simple? Or it's too similar? But when you think about it, you unpack these statements, they're huge. Now, there's some people here today, the reason I came up, they're here with a ministry out of Austin, Texas, and it's called Intimate Life, and Dr. Ferguson. Dr. Ferguson leads a global task force on discipleship. He also has a theology that I have adopted. And if you have read my book, Spirit Empowered Church book, chapter 13 introduces that philosophy and that theology. And his whole point is there's a third purpose of truth. I'm not going to unpack it all here today. We may talk a little bit more about it tomorrow. He'll be here tomorrow. But the disciple will know and the disciple will do has been the primary teaching of most evangelical churches. 2 Timothy 3:16. All Scripture is God-breathed, and I'm not quoting exactly, for teaching or doctrine. That's what you're supposed to know. For reproof, that's what you're supposed to stop. For correction, that's what you're supposed to start. But it's all behavioral. So you have a rational theology and a behavioral theology. But then that phrase that says training for righteousness is more coming into maturity in a family context, according to the Greek. So the point is, when you say love God, that sounds simple. But Jesus said 613 rabbinical laws, and out of that, the most important is loving God and loving others. So what Ron's talking about is that while it may seem simple to some people, he just illustrated, all 5 functions flow through these statements. And we are going to later talk about how somebody could unpack them in a sermon series. If you came to the church I pastored by transfer or by conversion, one of the first things I did is put you in a membership class to teach you what we believe. And then a policy manual was handed out to tell you how we act. Never dreaming that the place I ought to start is the Great Commandment. So there's a third purpose of truth. There's a behavioral theology, there's a rational theology, but there's a relational theology. And that relational theology is how do you literally experience Scripture. Knowledge, the Bible said, could puff you up. Working could wear you out. So if I've memorized 30 Scriptures and you've memorized 50, are you a better disciple than me? So how do you love God more? The first human crisis in Scripture is not sin. It's a relational problem. Genesis 2:18, you can't be alone. And Jesus did this all throughout his ministry. He approached the aloneness before he dealt with the fallenness. I'm just telling you, these are not simple statements. You just lose a child to cancer and tell me how you can continue to love God if Satan has his way. Love people. You tell me if you say something bad about me, I can forgive you. You run over my child and take their life, I'll have a hard time loving you. So I'm just saying, so many people just capture other people's thoughts without ever really taking them and internalizing them. And that's what this is all about. That's what he's saying. So I didn't want to interrupt him, but I've just come to believe, because I have to tell you, I thought the same thoughts other people are thinking. Well, this is just, he just said it. Slogans are not just mission statements or vision statements or value statements. And so, everything we're doing, everything we're saying, at least in our mind, it might be to somebody else's, but in our mind, has a very specific, distinct purpose for the process that we're in. Am I right, Ron?
Exactly. And the other thing that's important is that everything that church does now has to fit here. You know, when I went to my church, one of the first crises I had was a softball program at the church. And so my question is, where does it fit with our vision? Well, Pastor, it's fellowship. I said, great. That means you can't fight on the ball field anymore. You have to get along with each other. You have to demonstrate Jesus.
Oh, jeez.
Well, you know, they thought about that for a few weeks. And well, maybe it's not fellowship. Maybe it's discipleship. I said, okay, so we're going to have a Bible study then, you know, before the game or after. So, but my point was, you can't create a vision process under whatever these terms are and do 15 other things besides that. It's forcing churches to get serious and deliberate about what they're doing. Because here's what's happened in most churches. Sister Jones has a vision for a ministry, and so we start that. A couple of years later, then Brother Smith has a vision for a ministry, and we start that. And then Brother Higginbottom has an idea for something, and then we start that. And so you take that over 15, 20 years, and you've got 15 ministries going on, and none of them are connected to each other.
That's right.
And they're all fighting over the same few workers you got. Trying to do 15 different things. A church does not exist to fulfill a person's vision.
Wow.
That reality's got to hit home. And we talk about it in this process. You've got to figure out what is God saying for us to do. And we're going to do that with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength. You know, one of the fastest growing churches in America will remain nameless because you'll have an attitude about it, so I won't tell you the church. But what they say is, we're Ruth Chris, not Golden Corral. That's what they say. We are Ruth Chris, not Golden Corral. If any of you have been to Golden Corral, you can get every food known to mankind at the Golden Corral.
That's true.
You can get Mexican at the Golden Corral. You can get Chinese at the Golden Corral. You can get pizza at the Golden Corral. You can get every food known to man at the Golden Corral, but it's mediocre. But Ruth Chris has a select menu. They have a couple of chicken dishes. They have about 5 different steak dishes, and they only have about 2 seafood dishes. But it's real good. So what is this church saying? We cannot be everything. We cannot do everything.
That's right.
We have figured out what God's called us to do, and we're going to do it with excellence. It has nothing to do with the price of food. It has everything to do with quality and quantity. And we're having a lot of our churches to understand that. Because what happens in churches that don't know who they are, somebody's going to show up next week at your church, trying to get you to do what they want. You know why? Because the church they left, they couldn't get to do what they did, right? So now they come to this next church, they get them to do what you did. And so what's so important is that this process, what we hang on that vision statement is critical. And and has to be thoughtful with an understanding about this is what we believe God's called us to do. And less is more. Less is more. And helping churches to come to understand that is so critical. I served as the interim, got some of our Pendel leaders here. I served as an interim pastor at Christian Life Center in Philadelphia for 2.5 years. Just finished there at the end of this year. And church is about 1,500. 1 mile from us is another Assembly of God church that runs over 1,000. Did you know we're not competing with each other?
That's right.
They're reaching people that our church couldn't reach, and we're reaching people that they're not reaching. You know, in the AG we had that 3-mile rule.
That's right.
And what we were saying is, these are my centers. I'm not going to be able to reach them all, but you better not come and try to reach them.
Don't you dare.
But the unique thing is that the church knows what God's called them to do. That's why you got 5 burger places in the same block.
Thank you. Yeah.
And your church that's why this vision process is so important. Is determining what is it God's called us to do. And we're not going to try to mimic somebody else's church. Because the Holy Spirit is so creative, He didn't have to do the same thing the same way twice. We're the ones with that problem. We want to franchise the Holy Spirit. Have you ever noticed He refuses to do that? You know, we can just do it just like they did it. And one of the most amazing things to me is the fact that there are all different styles of churches today that are being successful. Anybody who tells you there's only one way to do it, don't believe other stuff they tell you either. And so it's determine what has God called us to do? What has God called us to do? And that lets us say no to a lot of other things. It lets us say no. But what we do in this journey is we find out what God's called us to do first. We don't start dismantling other stuff. We find out what does God call us to do now, and then everything we're doing then as a church, we have to ask ourselves the question, does it fit with the vision of what God's telling us to do now? Or where God's taking us? Because it worked 20 years ago does not mean it's right now. And my daddy was a pioneer, somebody, oh my God, preacher, and he didn't have the benefit of a lot of education and stuff that I had. But my daddy had common sense. And he told me, he said, son, if the horse is dead, for God's sake, dismount. I got a suspicion we're still beating on some dead horses in our churches.
Yeah.
That's right. If you can't say amen, say oh me. And so this whole coming to terms with this and being significant about the words we use and what we believe God's saying to us as a church, it's different for every church in the room. But it's knowing who you are, what God's called you to do. It gives you permission to say no to a whole host of things. But it gives you the ability to say yes to what God's saying. Because I think what matters is that we agree with what God's saying.
Amen.
And so that's what the process is about. Amen. You had a question, yes?
Yeah, just as far as implementation between one and retreat two, how do you encourage the churches to move from the discussion and the retreat to actually coming toward the next retreat with their finished statement?
Well, we've got assignments, so written assignments that are in the notes for them. After retreat one, we also have a 13-week prayer dialogue where every week they're praying together about specific things. And so, just the stuff we're teaching here, along with those things that help to create that discussion. We also talked to pastors on Friday about that because most pastors, let me rephrase that, many pastors don't know how to lead a small group.
That's true.
And so we have to help pastors understand how to be a facilitator, not a dictator.
Mm-hmm.
Because once the pastor shares his ideas, the circle is done.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And so we need pastors to draw, and what pastors are having to learn in some of our smaller churches is to actually let people tell what their feelings are. Because, they're saying it out in the lobby. Let's go ahead and let them say it at the table.
Come on. That's good. That's true.
Because then we can deal with it.
That's right.
We can deal with the lobby conversation, so a pastor being a facilitator, giving his people freedom to express and freedom for us to pray together, seek God together. We just did before lunch. We did the thing of telling your story. I'll tell you what we see happening at tables when people tell their story. We have people sitting around tables weeping together because you don't know somebody until you know their story. And people who've gone to church with each other for years and years and years don't even know each other. And they're sitting in that circle and telling their story, and people are weeping together, they're laughing together, they're rejoicing together. We're trying to build a team of people committed to work together, to pray together, to seek God together. And for many churches, that's the first time they've ever known what a team is. The experience at the retreat is helping them understand what life together is about. And when we can get that synergy going, and what happens at home when they're meeting every month. Some groups don't meet every week, but we recommend that they meet at least once a month between the retreats. And after the first retreat, they've got the prayer journal going. But to help build that, and as Malcolm said, they've never had missional conversations. And their pastor has never led that. Here's what we know. People take ownership of two things. What they pray for and what they give input to. People take ownership of two things. What they pray for and what they give input to. That's why when you have corporate prayer, you need people praying for the right things. Corporate prayer is not everybody showing up at the church and finding a place to pray. That's not corporate prayer at all. You can stay at home and do that. Corporate prayer is about the power of agreement.
That's right.
It's coming together, praying prayers of agreement, and that starts to happen here. And these are, it's easy for many of us who are great leaders that are in this room, and the things we're talking about, Al and I are talking about, it sounds so simple to some of us. But understand it's life-changing for some of our churches that are sitting here. It's transformational for them. They've never done this before. They don't know what a team is. And they're discovering how to be a part of one. And so all those are components that help to shape what's going on here. Yes, sir.
Will there be guidelines to help the guardrails to move from dreamscape to vision somewhere in the material?
Alton, I don't know if we have...
We were just talking, you don't want to, some dreamscapes are going to want... We just decided in our vision we want a robe choir.
You know what? There's nothing wrong with that.
But better than disrupt choir.
What's your problem here?
So ask your question again, Richard.
Are there guidelines somewhere that'll help the guardrails to be established when we're moving from dreamscape to vision statement?
And from that to where we're ultimately going is a strategic plan.
There
So
you
the guidelines have to be there all the way. But let me show you, illustrate what's coming next are values. So what distinguishes a vision statement from a mission statement? So the way I describe it is a mission statement is this. It's the Great Commission and the Great Commandment for the whole world. The vision statement gets a little more narrow, gets a little bit more prescriptive, but it still sounds very similar to the other one. But it's got a little more definition to it. It's got components to it that, if you unpack, is giving you this definition and prescription. When you get to values, it is actually your DNA of your individual church. It's your personality. It's what distinguishes you from the church across the street. It's what you do best. It's what you do well. It's what you value. It's how you behave. Some churches love expository preaching. Others love worship. Others love this. Others love education. Others love this. Others do this. You begin to define those values that's unique to you. What do you do best? Mike Clarence will be here tomorrow, and he was tell a story. I mean, I shouldn't tell his story because it may tell it tomorrow. I'll steal his thunder, and he'll tell it right. But my point is, he asked, doing this discussion, what do you do better than anybody else in town? And a lady raised her hand and said, funerals. So he said, how in the world will I get a vision statement, values, a strategic plan, whatever he was doing? He'll tell it better than me, and I'm sorry, I'm just ruining his deal. But the whole deal was, they were close to a funeral home. They had the best cook. It's a little town. And the pastor, he said, this lady was the pastor's wife. So she said, my husband is a great preacher, a good preacher, but he's a great preacher at funerals. And so Mike always says, I hate to know that somebody's got to die for me to reach my optimum. But anyhow, they devised a whole strategy of evangelism out of a funeral. Well, you wouldn't replicate that to everybody in the cohort.
Thank God.
That was unique to them. So when you get your mission, your vision, and then your values, that value is the boundary. It is the boundary. And so it creates this boundary for you, which makes you very unique. It defines who you are. Now, we'll go later and talk about, and I'll wait for Mike to come to that because he actually does this piece for me and for us. We have all kinds of metrics to evaluate effectiveness. We have 5 metrics that are not tied to nickels and noses. He'll unpack all of that tomorrow. But the point is, we're trying to get people to capture the passion of the leader, our leaders, the abilities of the people, and the needs of the community. That's what we're trying to do. The passion of the... See, I said that earlier, and it just passed by. But I'm just saying, one more time, repetitive and redundant. The passion of the leaders. I mean, you think about it. If a leader is passionate about missions, that's what they preach, eat, breathe, and speak. If he leaves and another pastor comes that's not, you will watch the missions giving go down this way. The passion of the leader. The ability of the people. So if you say, we want to be a worship church like Hillsong, if nobody can carry a tune, good luck. So what are the abilities of the people? I mean, if you've read some of Carl Bader's stuff on the small church, he actually says it might be okay to redo your church, the service schedule, which the reason I'm having a hard time getting the identity because I hate them. If you're a speaker, you hate the run sheet because it's a lying devil. If you're the speaker and they got 6 minutes for this and 8 minutes for this, and then you've got 42 minutes, trust me, by the time you get it, your 42 will be down to 21. Because everybody will violate that, but you cannot violate it because they're going to get in another service later.
He's feeling better now.
I'm feeling better. I just vented right there. I said that the other day in a session. And the next morning, I was preaching in a church, and they handed me a run sheet, not just a run sheet, Ron, laminated. Laminated. And he says, we're going to stick with the times. I said, we'll see. We'll see. But the passion, the ability, so Small Church Essential says maybe you wouldn't want to start with a worship service if nobody can sing well. Start with what you do well. So the point is, that's why every church is unique. They lead with your, and when you get to churches, I'll just throw this in now, when you get to churches that are like 50 and under, and that's 30-something% of the churches in our movement, so they can hardly do this. Now, they come to the meetings sometimes, but they struggle because, and what we do with them, and that's why we're going to roll out Thursday morning a new mentoring deal that you'll hear about Thursday morning that we haven't done in any of the sessions before, so it's new to all of y'all. We got to help those churches find the one thing they can do well, not the 5 things they can do. They got to get one thing down, and we got to help them focus on that and not feel bad about it. Because they can do, the smaller church can do stuff the larger church can't do. They can know you. They can know you. And then we got to do this discussion, and we'll have it here. The difference, because we're going to teach, and Ron does this better than me, teach from a doer to a developer. But how do you do that and not lose the shepherd's heart? See, these are tensions that we have to manage because we are shepherds, but we can't do all the ministry. So how do you manage that? The hardest threshold to break through, and I'm not going to put a number on it. The hardest threshold of growth to break through is when you get to this point where you're no longer able to do all the ministry yourself as a ministry team, like your wife, you, or your husband, and you, and your kids. There's a lot of pastors, the whole family, they're pastoring that church. They mow the yard, they clean the toilets, they open the church, they close the church, they do it all. I was a church pianist. I couldn't miss church to do homework. I had to go play the piano, then go to the back row and do my homework while Dad was preaching. I didn't have a choice. There was nobody else. So these are issues that we have to help churches with, that there's no one size fits all. This is not a cookie cutter deal. And that's why we're saying it the way we're saying it. That's why he's saying it the way he said it. If they don't understand the importance of it, they'll just brush past that and say, well, I can just go get somebody. I'll go on the internet and I'll find some church I like and I'll just get all this stuff. But if they don't have the process that they worked it out with the team, he just said it. If they don't pray for it and they don't give input to it, they won't really buy into it. They won't support it. They won't defend it when somebody criticizes it.
Good.
There was 2 weeks ago, I preached at a church that just finished the Aj2 journey with us.
Excuse me. I thought I said it. The needs of the community. Passion of the leader, ability of the people, needs of the community.
Just stay right there. Let me go to your session. 2 weeks ago, I was at a church that finished the Aj2 journey with us 2 weekends ago. And I carve out certain weekends to go to many of to those churches that have gone through Aj2 with us. I promise you, I was flabbergasted at the Sunday service. They did everything that I don't think you should do. I mean, if I went down my run sheet of stuff that I would say do not do, they did it.
And they just finished Acts 2.
And they just finished Acts 2. But
You did well.
I'm talking about this. I'm talking about the Sunday
It's a
experience.
refund.
The Sunday experience. The Sunday experience. And here's what I mean.
Just funny.
They had 5 minutes of music all morning. So that already messes up some people. But they were excited. I mean, you could the excitement of you could scrape off the wall, and they did all the things differently than what 95% of the churches in America would do. But the crowd's excited. The room is full. I preach, people get saved, but there's so many things that we think are the measurements of success they did not do. But they know what they're doing in the mountains of North Carolina. And so that's what Alton is trying to say. One side doesn't fit all. It's helping the church find out what is it that God's called us to do. And that pastor's so excited. He's so excited about the Acts 2 journey. He was so excited all the things that are going on. I wanted to say something to him about some things, Alton, but they were so happy I just left them alone. Hallelujah. And he said, "Ron, would you please come back?" I said, "Sure, absolutely, I'll come back." One of the sessions we do for pastors on Friday is about team building. One of the things we talk about in this journey is a church that has to build teams of ministry. That's different than a leader with helpers. We got leaders in our churches, and they have people who help them. But here's the problem. Helpers won't show up Sunday, and they don't even call you. You know why? Because they're just helpers. But if we create teams of ministry, ushers team, greeters team, nursery team, preschool team, we create teams, then everybody on the team owns it. Because they give input to it. And so we talk a lot about teams and teamwork and how important that is. And Alton has put together a fabulous session on it. He's coming down to share it with us. In your notes, there should be a session on teamwork. Amen?
It's not in your manual. It's in the supplemental notes. It's in your folder. Because we want to give you an example of what we teach on Fridays. As you're getting those out, let me give you a couple of statements that are kind of random, but they're very important. Ron kind of hit at a portfolio, but he didn't stay there very long. Let me stay there just a moment. Some preachers teach leadership the same way they preach on Sunday morning. So in a small group of leaders, they don't say much differently than what they say on Sunday morning. And so at some point, their leaders quit listening. So the objective of their teaching sounds a whole lot like the power of their preaching. So we tell them, try to make sure that you are speaking. And I know this sounds simple to many of you, but you just don't know. And this is not a condescending statement. We're trying to put the cookies on the lower shelf. The second thing he said, we teach pastors on Friday when they're talking at the table, and the first retreat, it's pretty quiet in the room on Saturdays, usually. But by the third retreat, everybody's feeling very open. And they're talking and laughing and carrying on. Because they've learned that they have the ability and the permission to speak what they feel. And then they know how to handle that if it's contrary to the majority. So we say, Pastor, you speak last. And we instruct them, you speak last. You'll be tempted to jump into the conversation early on. Let them talk. Because they're not going to tell you everything in the first 3 minutes of the conversation. And since I are one, I will tell you Southerners rarely tell you the truth.
That's right. That's true.
Not up front. They're smiling and happy. They love you and honey and baby and sweetie. Just as the knife goes right in under the third rib.
You're a prophet. I'm telling you, that's Southern.
I moved to Minnesota for 6 months.
Loved it.
My feelings were hurt the whole 6 months.
Straight, but you knew
Because
exactly
I
what people
moved
were.
from the south to the north. I never had anybody tell me they didn't like my tie. Everybody felt like it was their duty to straighten me out on everything they didn't like when I got to Minnesota. Bless your heart in the South is not a compliment.
No, it's not.
It means you're an idiot. That's what it means. It means you're an idiot.
I'm getting educated here, seriously.
All right.
You're right.
I'm just upset our secret code's out. I know, right?
I know.
I'm just telling you.
Seriously. These inside stuff you shouldn't be sharing.
I had to go to a church, a smaller church in Arkansas when I was district superintendent. 22% of the churches when I was in Arkansas were under, they resided, they were in a town of less than 1,000 population, 22%. So we had a young guy just got out of seminary, he came down there and they just burned my phone up. So I go down there to talk to him. He's not preaching heresy, he's not stolen any money, he's not chasing any women. I can't figure out why they don't like him. So I go talk to him. I said, tell me your day. Walk me through your day. So he told me he studied this much, he went to this place. I said, how many times have you been in their home? Well, I told them if they needed me to come call me. I said, what they heard was, don't bother me. He said, well, that's not what I said. I said, I don't care what you said. That's not what you said to them. He said, well, it's not fair. I said, if you want fair, go sell insurance. This has nothing to do with fair. We want you to succeed. I said, where do the farmers meet for breakfast? He told me. I said, have you been down there? He said, I went down there one morning, but nobody talked to me. I said, well, they're not for a long time. Go sit. He said, but it's so early. I said,
It's their days. All right. Get going.
go take a nap when you get done if you have to. I said, son, you need some cow poop on your boots.
That's true.
So whatever it takes to do this relationship, it's big. They tell the story in Arkansas. I can't verify this story. I tried to, but I couldn't find out exactly. But it was told. Church of like 20 and 22 people. Pastor, young pastor and his family, good people. First election, they get voted out. He's devastated. He had no clue it was coming. No clue. So he gets up. He's crying. And he is saying, what did I do? I love you. My family thought we would be here for a lifetime. I don't understand. Why did this happen? I didn't preach any bad doctrine. I mean, he went down to quiet. Nobody's there. Finally, a little lady with a German accent gets up from the back. Pastor, we just don't like you. People underestimate likability. I actually teach a lesson on how to improve your likability. Somebody said, well, how would you do that? I said, first point, quit being a jerk.
That's right.
That helps a lot. Well, I don't want people just to like me. I want them to respect me. I said, how's that working out for you? I'm just saying that pastoring when you're taking people from where this is my definition of leadership. I'm not saying it's original, but it's pretty close because I haven't read it anywhere, but I don't think I'm original. Leadership, this is one definition, is taking people from where they are to where they need to be, and when they get there, they think it's their idea. That doesn't do anything for the ego of the leader. But that's success. So when you start trying to move from a mom and pop store to a store to a church that's empowering people and releasing them into ministry and doing what Ron was talking about, forming teams, that's dangerous. Because they may want to run it. When they get a little power or control, that's what some people think. But if you don't make that change, and you can't shift from having joy and feedback and payoff and fulfillment from doing ministry to equipping others to do ministry, you'll always be the leader. You'll always be the leader. It's a big deal. That's right. First, it's a big deal because leaders don't want to make the transition. They have a shepherd's heart. They're a leader, they're a pastor. They want to do it. You heard the stories. When you make yourself a hero of every story,
That's a mistake. That's right.
you just sent signals
That's right. You're a narcissist.
of your personality.
You're a narcissist.
If you only tell stories of how people got healed when you prayed for them, you just ensured, if they believe you, that you're the only one that can pray for them. If you'll just say sometime, I sent Bill and Joe over to the hospital. They prayed for this baby that had spinal meningitis, and the baby was at the point of death, and today the baby is whole and healed. Man, old Bill and Joe, they are prayer warriors. I prayed for somebody last week and they died. But Bill and Joe... When you think about it, I went into the hospital room and I could just feel my hand was trembling with the fire of God. The guy was in a ventilator. He was unconscious, and I put a little dab of anointing oil on him, and I could feel the fire rolling down my arm. And when I touched him, his eyes popped open, and he spit that ventilator out, and he goes, "Oh, thank you, Pastor. You saved my life." And I turned around, and two nurses were standing there. I led him to Jesus. And then I walked outside, and the doctor was walking down the hall, and I waved my arm, and he just fell out under the power. But it's just Jesus.
That was a slow day.
Have a little self-deprecation. It's all right to apologize every once in a while. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you tell about the fight you had with your wife on the way to church. Put a little distance between some of your problems and the solution. But this is a big deal. When I was superintendent, and then we've done it since then, we did a little survey. What are the top needs that pastors claim they have? Let me give you 8, okay? This is not in your notes. You have to write this down. 8 top needs that pastors claim they have. I'm going to give you the top 3 in the order of priority that we discovered. Number 1, lay ministry involvement. Call it volunteers, call it gift-oriented ministry, call it lay ministry, call it whatever you want to. But lay ministry, getting people from the pew to engage in ministry. That's what we're talking about. That's what Rob was talking about. That's what we're talking about with team. Number 2, spiritual formation. Spiritual formation. How do you get people to live like they say they believe? Everybody is saying, from Pew to Gallup to Barna, that Christians don't act any better than non-Christians in this climate. Number 3, leadership skills. How can I improve my leadership ability? That's the top 3, prioritization. The next are 5 in random order. Number 4 is management. We almost belittle management at the feet of exalting leadership. But when you are a church of 60 or 70 or 80, pastors have to do it all. They wear 15 hats. The church I pastored, I had no clue where the breaker box was. In a large church, we staff the leader's weakness, or their inability, or their time constraints. We staff it. In a small church, they don't have the money to staff it. So as you're growing, you reach this point where you're too big to do it all yourself. You're not big enough to afford somebody else to do it. So you're stuck. We got to teach people when to pay withholding tax. You don't do that, they'll come get you. Or pay, you got to pay a big fine. I've had it happen. I've had to deal with pastors that didn't know when to do stuff that they should. It's management. Am I right, Tommy? You pastor West Florida, up in the Appalachian Day. I mean, we're talking about they got to know stuff. They got to know accounting. They got to know insurance. They got to. You think about right today. We are living in the most litigious society, and trust me, I'm going to put this in. It doesn't belong here, but it needs to be. 22 states have recently either eliminated or extended greatly their statute of limitations on sexual abuse. If you don't have at least $3 million in your insurance policy for sex abuse, you are running a risk. I'm just saying, pastors, they got no stuff. So they need administration and management. That's a big deal. Number 5. Am I on number 5?
Yeah. Yes.
Number 5 is communication. Not homiletics, communication. Nobody's taught people how to talk. So what do I do when I see my speaking time go from 42 minutes to 21? Do I talk faster? No. I eliminate stuff that they wish they could have heard, but they didn't get a chance. That's right. My dad never finished high school. He never went to Bible college, but he had a lot of native intelligence, and he used to say stuff like this. Son, if a dog can smell fear, an audience can tell when you're not secure. They can tell when you get in a hurry. They can tell. He said, don't you pirate a good sugar stick out of another sermon to prop up one that's not doing well.
That's good.
That's good.
Let every bucket set on its own bottom.
That's good.
Come on now.
That's good. Preach
I
it.
know they don't teach this in the master's courses. That's not intellectual enough. But it would get you out of trouble.
That's true. That's right. That's true.
That's good.
Am I telling the truth?
You tell the truth.
That's right.
They don't teach them that stuff. Somebody asked John Maxwell, how long should I preach? He said, how good are you?
Determine the time.
Some people, 15 minutes is too long. I played my first gig when I really got out and worked in 1971. I was the crusade organist for Jimmy Swagger. That was my first, one of my first deals. Second deal, really. I didn't last long. It wasn't because there was a problem, but I was trying to start going. It's a long story. But let me tell you, I studied Jimmy Swagger's communication style. And I can tell it to you today. He could preach an hour and a half. People would always started seriously, not humorously. Most people come out and try to tell something funny. The only person who can get by with that, in my opinion, is Joel. He can read some dumb joke that came off the internet that you've heard 100 times, and they just laugh like they never heard it. You know why? It's the law of the large number. If 10% of 16,000 laugh, that's a roar. You're on Wednesday night, and you got 13 people in the room, and 2 of them are asleep, and 3 of them are playing with a baby, and you tell a joke, and only 10% laugh, that's 1.3 people. That's like a BB rolling in a barrel. If a crowd is slipping on you, they're losing interest in you, walk toward them. You get me down here, pal. I'm standing this close to Jason. He's not looking at his phone. Am I right? I learned that in youth camp. Before we had cordless mics, I had a 50-foot cord. That thing, I could walk clear to the back. One night, a kid on the front row would reach and get that cord with his foot, and he'd slide it under, and then he'd stand on it. And I didn't tell anybody. I just keep preaching. I'd jerk it out from under him, and I'd go. About the 3rd time, I lost my interest in that little game. I went over there and I just kicked him on the shin in the name of Jesus. And I know the difference. I'm just telling you, there's just stuff you can do. Swaggart always started seriously. Let me tell you when he did his humor, way down in the content somewhere. It's called comic relief. That's what Shakespeare called it. He didn't know anything about Shakespeare. He's from Faraday, Louisiana. But he understood communication. He did something else that's still popular today. You ever watch TV? You ever read a novel? It's called looping. He would start 3 illustrations during that sermon, 3 stories, and he would bump them along. He never resolved those stories till the end of the message. Ring of fire. The king curse. Missing God's last train to heaven. All the Satan's apples have worms. I remember all of the sermons. I don't know what he said. But I remember the titles. And I remember the stories. Principles fade, but stories stay. Communication. I have no clue what number I'm on. 6. I gotta think of something.
I gotta think of something.
No, parenting. I usually go play the piano when I get down. Parenting. And 2 things that parenting problems were family problems. Money and parenting. 7 was evangelism. Missions, basically. That should be way up top. But it was. And number 8, conflict resolution. In our Acts 2 survey, the number 1 predictor of church health and growth is outward focused compassion. That's evangelism outside the doors of your church and the walls of your church. The number 2 predictor of church health is the absence of conflict. The reason we're doing all of this is to help people get in alignment. When you're in alignment, you have more efficiency, more effectiveness. You use less energy, and you move faster when you get into alignment. So, if you're going to have a team, my dad, here's another statement. Here's what he said. It's easier to anoint somebody than it is to unaanoint them.
That's true. That's true.
So I guess that meant something to you.
Oh, yes.
So how do you get the right people engaged? When we read Jim Collins, get the right people on the bus. YBH. Yeah, but how? It's easy to do the woulda, coulda, shouldas. But how do you do it? So I want to teach a lesson. This is when I teach on a Friday, and I always teach it, on how do you become the right team player. Not how should somebody else, but how would I. And so let's fill in a few blanks. You should have it. Do we have it on the back there, Austin? Got to put it on the screen. What? Becoming the right team player. I said earlier, if you tie everything, if you build it on the foundation of Scripture, you stand a better chance of defending it. So this is a good passage. We are all parts of the body of Christ. It takes every one of us to make it complete, for we each have different work to do. So we belong to each other, and each needs all the others. 5 qualities that a team member should have, and character is the first, of course. I can't coach character. Leadership, getting people on the team, is different than discipling them. Discipleship, they can fall off the wagon, you dust them off, put them back on. But when it comes to leadership, and you teach this in advance of recruiting. Teach it in the big corporate setting so you're not individualizing it one-on-one, personal. I call them casting points of reference. Casting points of reference. Do you remember when we talked about some people never think of the microphone and the pulpit as a real powerful tool of leadership development. We may not be always teaching leadership, but if you use Scripture, the first year I was at First Assembly in North Little Rock, I preached, I didn't know this, I really think sometimes we back into stuff, the Lord helps us intuitively, maybe Holy Spirit, and we don't really know. I preached 15 weeks on the priesthood of all believers. I tore that Scripture up. Those little old ladies that like to write on there the name of the speaker and what day they preached it, I wore them out. I preached 15 weeks on the same passage. You are a royal priesthood, a holy nation. Well, I'm an accountant. I'm not an accountant. You're a priest. Accounting is what you do to support your priesthood. Priests didn't go to the temple, didn't go to the tabernacle, they didn't go to that place in the wilderness to be blessed. Let that sink in. They went there to serve. They went there to minister. Somebody had to make sure that the lamp was never going to go out. Somebody had to make sure that the furniture was in the right spot. What if you were in the sacrifice detail? You think those 600-pound heifers just trotted in there and said, I'm ready to be offered? This was dirty business. Bucking, snorting, kicking, bloody. You didn't walk in there with your little white robe on and said, I just need my blessing. And if I don't get my blessing here, I'm going down to the other church because they'll bless me. And if you say anything I don't like, I'm leaving because I want somebody to tell me how good I am, not what I should become.
Oh.
That's I'm trying to blow that. Why? Because a few people did all the jobs. Why? They were good at it. Why? They always volunteered. Why? Because they taught nobody else that they had to. So we're starting to walk around. When I left there 15 years later, over 1,000 people had identified their gifts and were involved in some kind of ministry. But you're starting recruiting people to put them away. You character. I can't coach character. That's a godly thing. It's competency. I can coach that. I can teach you how to become more confident. I can give you training. I can give you books to read. I can give you resources. But this one, I mentioned a moment ago already, chemistry. Are you a relational fit? Pat Lencioni, in his book, The Ideal Team Player, says 3 qualities of a team. to be hungry. That means, are you willing to come in early and leave late to get the job done? How hungry are you? And you got to be smart. He's not talking about IQ. He's talking about socially aware. Are you aware how you make people feel and how they react to you? I like to liken it to a person with a backpack on coming down the aisle of a packed airplane. They've got this huge thing behind them packed full, weighs about 40 pounds, and they just turn and turn and turn, and they whack everybody coming down. And they act like they don't even know it occurred. They're not socially aware. And people are doing that with their words, with their tone, with their actions, with all kinds of stuff, and they're not aware. It's called chemistry. If I had a choice to hire you because of your competency versus your chemistry, I'd start with chemistry. Cooperative, that doesn't mean you'll never disagree, but you've got to have a spirit of cooperation. And once we decide, you've got to walk out of there in lockstep. Common goal, that has to do with our vision. That's what we've already talked about. Those are just 5 qualities. But if you give those as expectations, you give people something to look forward to. And the body of Christ functions as a team. We're back to Scripture now. Teams accomplish more than individuals. I could spend a little more time with Scripture there. Ecclesiastes 2 are better than one. A 3-fold cord is not easily broken. I mean, you got Scriptures. Paul sent them out in teams. Nehemiah sent them out in teams. Jesus sent them out in teams. And there's a lot of scriptural background for that. Let's talk about how would you put a team together. And I'll just use an acrostic or an acronym, and I'm not sure which that is. I'm not an English major. So T stands for trust. There are 3 building blocks of trust that I talk about. There may be more. First is consistency. Your past performance is an accurate predictor of your future behavior. So I'm going to watch you. That's the reason hiring from within sometimes is preferable, because you cannot evaluate consistency through a resume. I want to know your predictability. How do you respond to no? I was listening to a podcast the other day by Craig Rochelle. I don't know who you all you listen to, but I like his because it's really concise. I can listen to it on speed, and I can leave through it about 15 or 20 minutes. He said, when we get ready to hire somebody on our team, one of the things we do is we make them write a 10-minute sermon, impromptu, and present it to us, and preach it to us, right there, in front of all of us. The key, we never tell them, is not about content. We don't care what they said, content-wise. But when they get through, we're going to pick it to pieces and critique it and criticize it and reconstruct it. And we want to watch them react. Because if they can't handle that, they can't be on our team. We can't even listen to our own selves speak because we don't like how we sound. We won't let our spouse critique ours. Hey, God's using me. What if the one thing that a large church does that a small church doesn't have any idea about, large churches are ruthless with evaluation. Ruthless. Am I right, Tom? Ruthless. Ruthless. A buddy of mine spoke it. And you can say, well, this is carnal, this is not spiritual. You can do anything you want to. I'm not going to argue with you about any of that. I'm just going to tell you. So a friend of mine went to speak at the Life Covenant, correct? And they speak on like a Thursday or something, and they record it and they play it. So he gets through with his sermon. He thought, I did a pretty good job. And when he gets through, they come out. I don't know who it was, whether it was Craig or somebody else or a combination of people. And they said, that was good. But now we need you to do it one more time, and you need to shave 9 minutes off. Well, that's not fair. Well, you're not going to speak to them. I'm just saying, we never even come close. We don't evaluate teachers. We don't evaluate singers. We don't evaluate anything. We let people run the show that are doing it so incompetently, and we don't have any way to talk to them. I preached for a guy one day, and they were going to have a celebration, where they have a dinner back there, and you could smell it, and he says, you got all this time. Well, the music guy went 20-something minutes over. And basically, I said, well, why didn't you deal with that? Well, I can't. I mean, they've been here longer than I have. I mean, I'm just saying, if you are always punctual and you don't meet a standard of attendance somewhere you're supposed to be, you don't show up, they're going to come looking for you because you're never late. But if you're always late and tardy and you never call and you never inform, and sometimes you just never show up, you could be dead in a ditch for 3 days and nobody's looking for you. It's called consistency. However you've acted in the past is how you're going to act. So we're not going to give you a class to teach, hoping it'll make you more faithful.
That's right. That's good. That's good.
It's like one of the guys wanted to be on our board one time. He says, I don't tithe, but if I get on this board, I will. Obviously, he didn't make it. Loyalty. You know what I've learned? The negative voice always vacillates to the second tier. Very rarely will you ever hear what people really think in a setting like a church. So pastors, if you're in this room, they never tell you. And if they don't like you, they're going to find that they like one of your associates better.
That's right.
So let's say the youth pastor gets to go and preach on Sunday because the pastor and his family's on vacation. The little group that's having a problem with the pastor, they'll go up to the youth pastor after he's done or she's done, and they go, wow, what a sermon. I never felt the anointing like that in years. I wish our pastor could preach.
Yeah.
So when they start that youth pastor's got a problem. Do I let this feed my ego or do I nip it? Am I going to be loyal or am I going to be disloyal? You've got to teach people how to do this. The flesh never vacillates. It never defaults into righteousness, good behavior, excellence. It never does. It's the flesh.
That's right.
So if you don't teach people this, they'll do it wrong all the time. So you say, I say, you get that kind of action, you say, I give glory to God. Thank you for your compliment. But you know what? I wouldn't be here if the pastor hadn't given me this.
That's right.
And I'm so appreciative of him. And I don't know, but it sounds like you may have a problem. You might need to go talk to him.
That's right.
Plus, you think I preached a good sermon? I only preach out here twice a year. I already get a good sermon.
That's right.
The pastor has to do one every week. That's right. The most popular person on your team, ministerially, is the pastoral care person. Right? They never tell anybody no.
Mm-hmm.
They're always present when people are happy. They're always present when people are hurting.
Right.
So they can walk in and undermine you in a heartbeat.
That's right.
They go into a hospital. Somebody says, "Where's Pastor Craig?" I don't know. We love you. We're here for you. Yeah, but I thought Pastor Craig was coming. He's down there in Springfield somewhere playing around. We don't know where he is. We are here. It's golfing. They walk in and say, "You know, Pastor is so concerned about you. His team is so concerned. They sent me here to pray for you today." People come come to you with stuff, this is how we talk to the teams. So, when people come to you with stuff, well, what do you think the pastor's going to say about this? He's told us he's got this big announcement coming. I mean, people all the time that have influence are walking through your congregations with a bucket of water in one hand and a bucket, like a gasoline in the other, and there's little fires crop up. That's right. They got a choice to pour the water on it and dash it, or put the gasoline on it and explode it. Mm-hmm. That's called loyalty. Mm-hmm. And it works both ways. Somebody comes to you about a staff member. Have you been to them? Well, I don't know. I don't think it'll work if I go to them. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll schedule a meeting and I'll go with you, and we'll work it out with them together.
That's right. That's good.
Well, that still won't work. Well, let me tell you, if that's the way you feel about it, say it one more time. Because I want to write it down so I don't misquote you when I tell them what you said.
That's right.
Well, if I do that, they won't tell me anything anymore. Bingo. You ever heard people talk? I don't know why. All the negative stuff just comes to me. Hello.
Listen to it. That's right.
My spirits attract. Time takes time to build trust. The proof of trust is delegation. E stands for empowerment. Yeah, we're going to empower people. YBA. Yeah, but how? What does that mean? Well, first, when you're listening to people, show them the benefits and the blessings of serving. Create a list, whether it's called a ministry agreement, whether it's called a covenant, whether it's called a job description. Call it anything you want to call it. But list everything you want them to do. If you want them to be positive, put it in there. If you want them to be joyful, put it in there. If you want them to be a tither, put it in there. You can't inspect what you have not expected. Again, I say it over and over. The flesh will never default into excellence. Don't get mad at them for not doing what you want them to do if you hadn't told them what you want them to do. Adequately resource. That means you assess their giftings and you train them for competency. We have a new resource. If you haven't been to our website, it's called the Grow Track. Oh, I know about one of those from Church of the Highlands. Yeah. We've got one designed around the Aj2 template. It's called Acts Grow Track. ACTS. A stands for ability. C stands for calling. What is your calling? And that leads to your passion. What is your passion? T stands for temperament. What are you? Introverted, extroverted, choleric, or phlegmatic, or melancholic? What are you? S stands for spiritual gift. We want people slide, and we got little surveys. It's not so scientific that you got to have a degree in psychology to administer or read it, but it's all in the Grow Track. And we scale ours for 400 and under. You can assimilate somebody from you can take them from the door to the court in 3 weeks. Check it out. It's not that expensive. If you're going to empower somebody, the first thing you're going to do is trust them with responsibility. It takes some risk to trust people. Well, they can't do it as well as me. I know. So where's the threshold? If it's 80% as good as you, would you not do it? 70%? Trust them. What if they try to build their own kingdom? It's risky, but you got to trust them. And then you have to unleash them with authority. If you don't give them corresponding authority, you've frustrated them. Now, you don't give everybody equal authority. Just like you don't treat everybody the same. That's the biggest fallacy I've ever heard. Well, we're going to treat everybody the same. You don't treat all your children the same.
That's right.
If you got 3 kids, you know good and well. They all came out of the same bloodline, and they're as different as daylight and dark.
That's right.
Yep.
You have levels of authority that they are qualified to have. You monitor them after you've trained them for competency. Then you monitor them through accountability. I'm not going to talk a lot about that because that's my next point. Encourage them. Praise them in public. Correct them in private. I heard this the other day. I really liked it. These are volunteers. You don't have to pay them. You don't pay them. They don't have to come. But you got to tell them, well, if they love God, they just come work in. No, they're fine. Let them know. I love email, but I still believe that one of the most effective ways to tell somebody you appreciate them is a little card with a little note on it. You say, well, I don't know a lot to say. I don't know what to say. Well, get a small card and a big Sharpie. You don't have to say a lot. It's the act. It's the thought. It's the intention. Right?
Right.
This guy says you compliment, praise until you think you've overdone it. And when you think you've overdone it, double it. Accountability. Some people say that's what did you do? You weren't supposed to do. That's another form of accountability. But I like this definition. Accountability is offering necessary information before it is required. Now this is in the context of team. I'm going to tell you how to unpack this. Offering necessary information before it is required. You say, I don't understand what you mean. Man, if you're married, I can help you. You ready? This is Marriage 101. If your wife has to ask you how she looks, it's too late. That is a trick question. It's like saying, does this dress make me look fat? Don't answer that. Well, if you say, well, honey, you look beautiful. If I do look beautiful, how come you didn't bring it up? I had to ask for that. If you say something other than beautiful, you don't need this lesson. You need therapy. Johanna's sitting over here. I'll give you another example. I walk out of the house at 10:30 at night. She senses I walk by her. She's at her computer. I go out to the garage. I open the garage door. I start the car. She's wondering, where's he going? What's he doing? It's 10:30 at night. He didn't say a word to me. What's he doing? Suddenly she's a little miffed because I just didn't report. And then she says something to me in a tone that I'm not real appreciative of. And a decibel level that I don't appreciate. Alton, where do you think you're going? And then I react and the spirit of stupid comes over me. And I say, well, I don't think it's any of your business. I'm a big boy. I can go where I want to. I'm pretty sure that y'all already decided there's going to be some trouble in the Garrison household. Why? If I walk by and say, honey, I'm going to Walmart, I'll be back in 20 minutes, she never looks up. I've given her information before she required. Now, put this in a church setting. You got a job, you got an expectation, you got something you're supposed to do. If you're not going to meet that expectation, report it before they have to investigate where you are. You say, well, that's simple. No, it just smooths everything. 2007, I was elected assistant general superintendent. It's the first time I had the word assistant in front of my name. As an evangelist, as a pastor, as a superintendent, even as a U.S. missions director, I was always responsible for the bottom line. Now, I'm on somebody else's team. And I have the word assistant in front of my name. So I wrote Dr. Wood a long email. I said, I've taught this principle and I'm going to practice it. I give you permission to walk into my life or my ministry, correct me, redirect me, mentor me, whatever you need to do. I give you full permission. I'm on your team to make you successful. He saw me in the hall later and said, no, thank you for that. You didn't have to do that. So yeah, you did. I said, I never want to sit in my office and you sit in yours and you be thinking, I wish I could tell Alton this. But I don't know how he's going to react to it. I'm taking that off the table. Somebody said, well, what if he reprimanded you? How would you feel? I said, hurt my feelings. I'm human. I'm also a big boy. I'll get over it. I can't tell you how many things go unsolved in church because of that one issue right there. We don't know how they're going to react, so we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to confront it. So they're late for this assignment, or they don't show up for this, or they don't do this, and then we don't do it, and then pretty soon it just builds up in our spirit. And one day, one of us, or both of us, because they already know they're doing wrong, and so they're rejecting, so that all of a sudden it's this tension built, and then there's an explosion. Just report it. I was going to be here, but I'm not going to make it. Hope you forgive me. Thank you. See, once you say, forgive me, what can I do to make it right? You put the ball in their court. Then they either have to forgive you or they have to continue to live in sin.
It's true.
Selah.
It's true.
Okay, this is my favorite thing I've ever taught. I taught this every year once I learned it. It's not original with me. I'd like to give credit. I'm not exactly sure where I got it. I think I am, but I'm not sure. But I taught it every year. On Sunday morning I preached. I put it in a sermon. Sometimes I had different texts and I had different. This is it. I call it the leadership triangle. So when you are at the bottom, your rights are at their maximum. Okay? Your rights are at the maximum. But once you start picking up your responsibilities and getting involved, you become a part of a team and accountable and pick up your responsibilities, you've got to start laying down your rights. Okay? So let's just say you're at the first line up there. That's you join the group team and you've got a little badge on. And you're out of the front door. You've just lost the right to represent yourself. You got to represent the pastor, the church, God. You can't discuss your own problems. You can't tell them how you feel. You can't express yourself the way you think you want to. Well, you're dishonest. No, you're not representing yourself anymore. You can't stand out there with a scowl and say, well, come on in. I can't vouch for today. Last week wasn't that good. But I've heard him preach a whole lot better. Man, his voice so loud. Thank God they got those little earplugs in there. And you can't say that. You got to say, this is the day the Lord hath made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. When we came here a couple of years ago, our family was a wreck. But man, this is a great place to heal. Our pastor's going to preach a message today. You're going to love it. The music's it's going to be a place where people can find Jesus. I mean, whatever, you got to be positive. Well, I don't feel that way. Fine. Take your little badge off and go sit down.
That's right. That's right.
You can say that on a Sunday morning to everybody, and you've not really picked on anybody. And they'll all kind of laugh like you're laughing until it happens to them. But when it happens to them, you're not surprising them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I put usher there, and I do this just for fun, because I know lots of people are giving online and all kinds of stuff like that. But if you're an usher and you're not a tither, I got a problem with you.
That's right.
Because if you'll steal from God, we don't stand a chance. Hello. I just put that in there to shake everybody up. You see what I'm saying? Then you're on the worship team. You not only have to say the right thing now, you got to look the right way. You can't be singing those worship songs of adoration and look like you just
Come on.
And then I just go on and take it to another level. If you're going to be on the worship team and you're not going to help me with the whole service, don't come. In other words, don't listen, don't worship and then run out the back and play games on your computer till it's time for the end of the service and come back in and think you helped me.
Come on.
I'm just trying to be a blessing. Is that okay? Did I see Pastor Bradford come in? Is he still here calling? I wanted him to say hello. I'm going to interrupt this just a minute. Pastor Bradford is the pastor of Central Assembly, and they've been so gracious to give us this room. And I want you to meet him if you haven't met him and say hello. I don't know where he went, so. But when he comes, holler at me, okay?
He's coming. He's coming.
I don't see. Oh, there you go. Hey, Jim, come up here just a second. I just want you to say hello. They need a reprise from what I'm saying. I just about stirred up all I can stir up. This is Pastor Jim Bradford. Dr. Bradford, you know, is our General Secretary, and he is my pastor, and he has been so gracious, he and his team, to allow us to come to this.
I saw you were only halfway up the pyramid, so I thought, I will come another day. You asked me to come say hi. Thank you for that. It was great to see you. A lot of friends in this room. I'm back here now, so your presence helps me. I feel like you just sort of just making this end of the church float today. That's good. This helps us. And I'm more surprised than anybody that the door opened and I felt led to come back and pastor, but I'm loving the challenge of interfacing with this congregation at this point. And my first year, last year, my first year after I became full-time, I brought our whole team through the Aj2 journey when I was here in Springfield. And thank you, Elton, for leading us through that. I'm a great fan of what you are doing. It's all the foundational principles that helps the church grow, and we're seeing things blossom as we implement these principles. So God bless you. Thank you, Elton. God bless you. Love and appreciate you as well.
And you can just keep going up, and the further you go up, look at there, the less rights you have. Teacher, department leader, board member, staff member, pastor. Those things didn't work out quite right. I don't know what happened. But you get the fact. Up there on the top, look at that little, let me see here if I can get the pointer. See that right up there?
Yep.
Doug Clay. That's where he is. He has no rights. None. See, what happens is you have to learn how to give up your rights because of your love for God and love for your organization. I could go on and on. You got to give up the right to be unforgiving. You got to give up the right to be stingy. You got to give up the right to be angry. You got to give up the right to be reactionary. You got to give up. See, everybody can be a jerk, but you. I mean, they can blow up and want you to forgive them in a heartbeat, but you have a little bit of a twinge of an anger problem somewhere, and they'll be talking about that for years. Not fair. I get it. It's not fair. But you got to give up sometimes the right to be right.
That's right.
That is where you get your rewards. So when your options decrease as responsibilities increase, you give everything to God and let Him help you teach this, preach this, put it in operation, because then you have a point of reference to deal with people when you say, you know what? Remember when we said this? And I'll give you a line I may use later, but I'll just put it now. I learned this line, and I used it. I can't force you to do this. But the person who fills your position is going to do it this way. I hope it's you.
That's good.
Now the ball's back in their court. I can't force you to pay tithe. I can't force you to be on time. I can't force you see what I'm saying? But the person who fills your role, who is teaching this class, singing on this team, playing on this drum, they're going to have to do it this way. And it's your choice whether it's going to be you or not. That may be worth your price of admission.
That's right.
We're going to talk about mentoring later on. Let me just give you a little preview of mentoring the way I put it in this one. That's a definition. It's a good one. It's not the only one. It's a support of somebody, usually older, it could be younger. Reverse mentoring is pretty prevalent today. More experience who provides advice and support to and watches over and fosters the progress of a younger, less experienced person. Let me tell you why I put this in here. It's because I'm trying to help people learn to do what I did with Dr. Wood. Give somebody permission to correct you, to call you out. Somebody says, well, lots of times I go, and I know Ron does, and any of you that travel do, people are always asking us on Sunday morning, after we've been there at lunch, what did you see? What do you want to say? Now, this guy, Cal, Winston was telling me, you know, he was a secret shopper in every church in his district. So I don't have a relationship with you, and I don't have permission. So I'm reluctant to do anything more than talk about surface stuff.
That's right.
But you got to have somebody in your life that loves you enough that you respect them. We're not talking about a critic. Critics are a dime a dozen. We're talking about somebody who wants you to become better, and they're not willing to let you keep making the same mistake over and over.
That's right.
And when you say mentor me, you know what you're saying? You have permission to tell me what you think I need to hear, and I cannot get mad at you. That's what you're saying. They got to know that. I say to people that are in my circle, close to me, stuff I wouldn't say to you. I'm not qualified to tell you. Plus, you would get mad at me. So, all of these points are with that in mind. There's two ways to receive wisdom. Mistakes or mentors. You can do it the hard way, the slow way, or the good way, or the fast way. Your best friend, your mentor's not your best friend. Your best friend loves you the way you are. Your mentor loves you too much to leave you as you are. See, that's the mentor. They love you, but they want you to improve. Your best friend is comfortable with your past. Your mentor's comfortable with your future. Your best friend ignores your weakness. Your mentor removes that weakness. You got to let somebody care about you enough to tell you when you've got spinach on your teeth. Your best friend is your cheerleader. Your mentor's your coach. Your best friend sees what you do right. Your mentor sees what you do wrong. They're not just a critic. They're trying to get you to a place of excellence. Your mentor sees things you cannot see. They see weaknesses in you before you experience the pain of that weakness. They see an enemy before you discern that enemy's presence. What a great asset. They've already experienced the pain of a problem you're about to create. That's why you need a mentor. So, that's like what we would teach on Friday. Now, here's something that's going to feel very counterintuitive, okay? Very counterintuitive. When we're in a cohort that lasts a year and we're teaching these points, maybe not so much the Friday sessions, but the Saturday sessions, here's what we ask. Don't get tempted to take these principles piecemeal to the pulpit next Sunday. Am I right, Tommy? We've done four of these rounds. It is so tempting to take a piece of what you've heard, run to the pulpit, and
Unleash it.
But what we are looking for is a comprehensive, very sequential, detailed plan that is going to be launched at a specific time with the proper amount of build-up. Now, the temptation is great, so you have to say it more than once.
Yeah.
Because they just can't wait. Now, is it the end of the world if they don't wait? Probably not. But it'd be better if they did. They got a better chance of succeeding. They got a better chance of seeing the whole church get engaged if they do it and they trusted the process. So Friday session, let me tell you something else we do on Fridays, especially the first retreat like this one. On Fridays, we don't do a PowerPoint, but we take those pastors that are going to have teams the next day, we take them through an overview of the material so they're not surprised. Because here's what we don't want. We don't want them to feel fearful that we're going to expose a flaw in front of their people. We don't want them to think that we're there to try to find a scapegoat. And we're not going to say if the pastor would have done this or if they'd have done... No. That's not. We're not there to try to blame anybody. We're not blaming past leadership. We're not blaming them. We don't want them to feel like that we have any way, any reason, any inclination of blaming them. Now, will they feel guilty? Everybody will. Because what we're teaching is going to hit somebody. That's why the leader is going to be changed as much, if not more so, than the others. But that's not our objective. So I want to put them at peace. I want to put them to relax. I want them to feel better about the week. Because it's an unknown for them. They don't know what's going to be said or what's going to be done. So what we're trying to do is to help them understand that they want to go up to the balcony and see the bigger picture. But we want to help them have perception, but we also want them to listen from the floor. So they got to listen to the floor. That's the people that they bring with them and the people in their church. But they want to see from the balcony. And they have to really work at that to understand the difference. The perspective from the balcony is different from the voice at the floor. Because the voice at the floor normally is the loudest voice and the most significant leader. So whoever, tomorrow morning we'll deal with this, whoever is the one people turn and look at when they speak, they're the leader. They may not have a title, they're the shadow. They're the shadow. When I became the pastor, First Assembly North Little Rock, there was a staff member there, an associate pastor that was ultimately there 37 years. And he worked with 7 senior pastors, and I was the 7th with 0 pastoral experience. I'm 39 years old. I've never dedicated a baby. I'm 39 years old. I've never planned a funeral. I've never led a board meeting. I've only done one wedding. I don't know if it counted. I mean, I have reason to say that it was out in the park, so it wasn't in church. I know it didn't last, right? We're talking about frustration, fear, anxiety, gloom, despair, agony on end. For 1 solid year, he had more knowledge than me. He had more experience than me. He had the people's affection more than me. In fact, Brother Marvin Gorman, when he was executive presbyter, called me crying. He said, Alton, God tells me you're the man for North Little Rock. God tells me you got to fire George Murray or not take that church. I said, Brother Gorman, it'll split this church if I fire George Murray. He said, what you have left would be better than what you got now. Because it would be like me leaving the pastor of First Assembly in New Orleans and moving down the hall to become the business administrator. He has all the influence. He has all the credibility. He has all the relationships. He has all the history. Was it easy? Not necessarily. But I said, I can't do it. I can't fire him. I had one old deacon that I told that to, nobody else. He looked at me and he said, Pastor, put on your alligator suit. And I'll help you, and we'll make this work. And when George Murray passed, and I did his funeral, his son came to me and said, Alton, my dad worked with 7 senior pastors, and nobody treated him as well as you did. You can do this. You can do it. In another situation, I might have cleaned house. Then, the Pope. That's what I used to call it. Gorman, back in there. He was like the Pope. At least I knew that.
Did you know him?
I disobeyed him.
You knew more.
Because he couldn't tell me what was going on in my church. Even though he knew that church, he wasn't there. He wasn't going to bear the consequence. He wasn't going to fight the battles. He wasn't going to live with the fallout. And he wasn't going to have to deal with it. George Murray's wife taught the largest Sunday school class. George Murray's brother was on the board for 40-something years. George Murray's nephew was the choir director in Green in the field. So when you start teaching stuff like this, you're bucking the system. But you got to be patient sometimes. If you're there for the long haul, it doesn't have to happen the first year and a half. I won't go into more detail. I'm done for the day. My toughest year, my second year, and my 14th year. My toughest years, my second year, and my 14th year. Go read that in the book. It ain't there. Trust me. Thank you, Lord, for this day.